All right. Well, I think we should just get going and people can hop on whenever they want to. Um, for those of you that this is your first time joining us, my name is Jake and my partner here is Eric. Uh,
Hi
we
there.
we have a company called Master Vacation Rentals, and we've been in the vacation rental business for about 4 years now. And our goal with this is just to help everyone out and see if we can make things a little bit easier for those who are starting off now. So for those that are not familiar with us, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just show our website very quickly here. This is our free training page. And all this is a bunch of videos of all of the previous webinars that we've done, hopefully giving you some info about starting an Airbnb, doing it better. Quite a few videos on here, so feel free to hop on, take a look at those. We also have a lot of products and services that we felt like made our lives easier, so feel free to take a look through the website. You can reach us on Facebook. We're at Master Vacation Rentals. So feel free to reach out whatever way. You can also shoot us an email. And tonight we're going to do things a little bit differently than we normally do. Normally we pick a topic, we try and teach something, and then we kind of take questions along the way. Today is, since we're in a weird place in life right now, we just wanted to open things up and chat with people and see how people are doing and what's going on in your lives and if there's anything we can help you with. So I'm going to start with a quick uh, synopsis of where my life is. I am a firefighter, so I spend 48 hours at a time at a firehouse, and we are pretty actively involved with the whole COVID situation right now. We're wearing hazmat suits on a lot of our calls and respirators, and even wearing masks around the station. So life is definitely different than usual. My wife works in the ER as a PA, and she is also 8.5 months pregnant. So it's been quite a weird scenario for us, but we are doing our best to take it with a grain of salt and then enjoy the extra time that we're having together as opposed to running all over the place. So, Eric, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Well, I think Jake's maybe got me beat in terms of crazy stuff going on, but I was just most recently in Michigan for several months training for a new day job. So just made it back to Denver recently, so been transitioning on that front, and also recently engaged last year, so had to working on postponing the wedding that we had scheduled for this summer. So a lot of moving pieces and trying to get some held in being back here in Denver, but definitely great to be home, and great to get to connect with some of our followers on the Master Vacation Rental side of things. So yeah, we're just looking forward to chat, having a conversation, and a little bit of a different forum, and look forward to diving into, if there are any particular topics that you would like to discuss or that are on your mind. We'd love to be a resource if we can, and at least come together as a community and try and help each other out here.
Yeah, so let's start it off. It looks like at the moment we have 4 other folks online. So looks like we have B. Wesley. Tell us how you're doing with all this.
Hey guys, haven't really started any of the Airbnb process. Just thinking about our downstairs isn't really utilized at the moment. So as a extra income stream, just trying to get a better understanding of what it is to get it started, and kind of what pitfalls you guys have seen with different renters and negotiating with the city, or not with negotiating, but understanding all the rules that the city and state imply on impose on it. That's
Yeah, definitely. And everyone's healthy and has a job and everything's good in your family.
Yeah, right now I'm an insurance agent, so a lot of people are not really wanting to move, and unfortunately, a lot of have become unemployed. So it's tough still trying to charge them to drive around. Uh,
Sure.
my girlfriend is starting a new job soon enough as a veterinarian, so she's doing that. But otherwise, yeah, we're all healthy and safe.
Good, good to hear. Well, we can definitely answer any specific questions that you have. I think we'll just kind of hop down the line here and have a quick heads up on who's on the line, and then we'll just open it up and everyone can chat about what's going on. I'm happy to share numbers and give everyone kind of a heads up of what happened to my business over the past few months, and we can go from there. So looks like Herb.
Yeah.
How are things going for you?
I've got a number of, all things are okay. Everybody's healthy, and that's good. Getting a little
Good.
tired of being cooped up, going a little steer crazy, but things are opening up, so that's fine.
Yeah.
So where am I at? I've got a number of regular rentals, long-term rentals, and that I've been involved with for a long time, but more recently I've got interested in the short term. And what I've been doing is my wife and I have several homes. The one I stay in most of the time is up in the mountains, and I've been adding on a second, much larger loft to a little loft that exists right now on top of a barn. And that what I want to do is turn this place into a short-term rental, having either one or two lofts available at any given time. With
Nice.
the COVID-19, I've had a lot of time to work on finishing this place, because it was basically constructed as far as kind of like in a shell about a year ago, and I've been working on getting the inside totally finished up. So that's kept me busy, and that's where I'm at right now. So, my goal is to, like I said, turn this mountain farmhouse into a short-term rental as soon as possible.
Nice. And where is that located?
It's up in above of the mountains above Colorado Springs in Woodland Park.
Okay. Awesome.
Nice.
Great. All right, Lars, tell us how you're doing. Lars, are you there?
Okay, how's that?
That's good.
I
Sorry
got you
about
now.
Okay, so doing okay. I changed careers a while back. I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm doing everything telehealth these days, so that's working just fine.
Oh, wow.
And so we live in Iowa, have kids a kid in Colorado Springs. Our plan was to actually be out there right now and be meeting with a realtor and looking at some properties to see if we could do kind of a half-time Airbnb, and then half-time we stay in Colorado and stay in the property. And kind of in the research stages of that, and then all this hit. So that's still what we're interested in doing, is finding some way to have a property in Colorado Springs that we can rent when we're not there, probably more along the lines of a week or a month at a time, rather than day to day. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Great. All right, Marcia, last but not least.
Hey everybody, sorry I'm in my car and I wanted to make sure I got home. I'm parked in the garage right now, so if you see me, I'm in the garage and there's barking dogs inside. So everybody's healthy on my side. I did lose my job. I started a new cool job on March 9th, and by April 22nd I was laid off.
No.
I live in, oh, it's okay, things will work out the way they're supposed to. I've had some
Yeah.
interviews. In fact, I had one today.
Great.
So and ironically, for Lars, it's in the telehealth with Teladoc is the company. And then I also live in Woodland Park. So I have a home in Phoenix, Arizona, where I raised my daughter. I had long-term renters in here for 4 years. They were more or less gentle on my home, but I am hesitant to do anything as a long-term rental again. I would prefer to do an Airbnb if possible, or VRBO, whichever organization. My goal, like Lars, was to be able to have my home base in Colorado in Woodland Park, and then rent this out maybe just a couple months of the year. Baseball season, spring training is a big deal here in Arizona. And like you said, COVID happened, so that all was scrubbed, the whole baseball season and spring training. So I never even got around to doing that. So I guess my questions are, if you do short-term rentals, what is the legal ramifications, especially with COVID situations, where are you allowed someone to leave if they're not paying month to month? What does that look like from a business standpoint versus Airbnb?
Oh, versus Airbnb?
Yeah.
Maybe I misunderstood the question. So you're saying if you have a month-to-month lease versus an Airbnb in a month-to-month situation, can you ask someone to leave?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a difference between an Airbnb? The house next door to me in Woodland Park has been rented out by an engineer for a few months now. So it seems to me that there'd be more of an ability to say, okay, you need to move on, as we have another tenant coming in, July 4th, that weekend, versus what are the ramifications from a short-term rental on a month-to-month basis where there's a lease, an actual physical lease.
Yeah, so I guess in the past, I would have said that it's probably easier with a lease to get someone out of your property than through an Airbnb situation, just because you actually do have a signed document that says the terms and what you need to do to get them out of there, and when they're supposed to leave and all of that. Colorado is a pretty landlord-friendly state, so the eviction process is fairly expedient for the most part. But I don't know the details of that in Arizona. I'm originally from California, and it is the exact opposite. If you want to get someone out of your property, it could take you 3 or 4 months when all things are said and done. Whereas in Colorado, I think the average eviction process is under 15 days if you do everything right. So from an Airbnb standpoint, I would say that you receive all of them. So Airbnb is paid the full amount essentially when the guest makes the reservation, or there's actually an option for them to pay half if they book something very far in the future. But basically Airbnb has all of the money, and then if it's a longer term rental, more than a month, you get paid once a month for that rental from Airbnb. But I guess the strength in that is that the money is already in Airbnb's hands, and as long as the person is still there, you should be being paid for that. Whereas with a lease, you could potentially have a situation where the renter just decides to not pay, and you don't have any of the money. So you're trying to get that from them one way or another.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
hopefully, yeah, hopefully that helps.
It does.
We got two more people that look like they've hopped on.
Okay.
Got Lindy and then someone calling in from an Idaho number.
All right. Well, Lindy, if you want to share, we're kind of just sharing what our situation is, making sure that everyone's doing okay with COVID, and then sharing a little bit about what your situation is as it relates to Airbnb.
Actually, I had a vacation rental. I sold it about over a year ago. Was process of trying to find a new one, a little bit bigger property. Had a couple of bids on houses, but I always got beat out. The last one I got beat out was just a few days before the whole COVID crisis hit. So I don't have anything. I don't have any property right now, but I am waiting to see what the economy does, how it turns around. Hoping it turns around because I definitely want to get back into it.
Sure. Sounds good. Everyone's healthy and doing good in your family?
We all had a round of it, and some of us got really sick. Some of us barely had it. I was one of the lucky ones. I'm even questioning whether I had it because it was such a light case. But
Gotcha.
my daughter came down with the full-blown pneumonia and ER and all that stuff, but she's recovering. That was back in March, so we're all good now.
Good to hear.
Glad to hear.
We have a 208 number. If you're the 208 number, feel free to introduce yourself and give us a heads up what's going on in your world.
Hi, my name's Alicia. I was just curious to hear what other people's experience was. I have a one single family home that's a long-term rental, and then I live in a duplex where I live on one floor and rent out the other, which I was thinking once the current lease ends to transition to Airbnb. But you know, hearing the stories and reading what's happening with COVID, I was just curious what other people were experiencing and was wondering how successful a model that would be going forward. I haven't had any problem. I screened my tenants carefully, and I haven't had any problems and don't expect to have any problems with them paying rent, since they they have secure jobs. The one couple is living in my duplex is young, and he is experiencing some furloughs. However, his wife is a nurse, and her employment is secure. I think that if they were to move, they were just thinking in terms of moving in with family to save money long-term for their own home, which I knew when I worked to them.
Sure. Great. Well, that's good to hear that you haven't had any major ill effects as far as collecting rent at this point. And so I'll give everyone a quick heads up from where my business was. So I own 5 units up in Steamboat and 1 unit in Denver, and then I've managed 3 other, or help people manage 3 other units up in the Steamboat area. Business basically went from full bore, high season, awesome in the beginning of March to every reservation I had canceled by about March 20th. So we were expecting to have 1 more month of really solid rentals, and that disappeared. So from a numbers perspective, I'll share my screen here so that everyone can kind of see what the situation was. So this year, from March 20th to May 31st, our total revenue was $12,000 for all of the rentals. And last year at that time, pull this up here. March 20th, May 31st. I think it was about 35,000 when we were looking earlier. So we're down about $25,000 in revenue. And this is a very slow season for us. So, you know, we should have had 1 more good month of rentals, and then things would have dropped off. We also have 1 more rental now in 2020 than we did in 2019. So it was a pretty significant decline in business. what I ended up doing was I took 3 of my units and I put them up for long-term rent, and I was surprised at how much demand there was for long-term rentals. So I have 2 of my units that have been rented for about 17 months each, and then I have another one that's a 6-month lease. And luckily, Governor Polis just changed the rules now, and we can now start renting short term again. So I just took my first reservation in 2.5 months today, and I'm happy to say that we are going to start renting short again. So it's definitely been a dramatic shift for us in our business, but luckily we were able to quickly pivot and, you know, get some long-term renters in there enough to pay our mortgage. And we feel lucky that we're not super over leveraged and that we had a little bit of a cash cushion to weather the couple of months of uncertainty.
It's Marcia. May I ask you, so for the folks that are long-term renting, what did you do with your furniture? Did you pull it out, or did you rent with as is with fully furnished?
I rented them fully furnished, and I was actually really surprised by who was applying for these units, but it was mainly construction workers in the area, and not day labor construction workers, but you know, head engineer, superintendent, those type of construction workers. There's quite a few large projects going on, and they were clamoring for pet-friendly furnished properties, and that is exactly what I have. So I felt very lucky to find those folks. We had a lot of people inquiring, just, you know, people in Steamboat as well, but it seemed like once we dug into who could pay the high rent that we were asking, given that we were paying for utilities and it was fully furnished, it seemed like those were the ones that kind of rose to the top as the ones that were going to stay there. So the mix that I have right now is I have 2 construction workers, 1 person who works at Honey Stinger, which is a outdoors food brand in the area, and I have 1 person who is a assistant DA who is just moving there for a year. So all of them wanted furnished rentals.
Jake, do you want to talk about the difference on, you know, advertising those units for rent versus, you know, more traditional short-term rentals?
Yeah, sure. So usually we post everything up on Airbnb, and I did leave all of the units up on Airbnb until I had them rented, because I wasn't sure if someone was looking for a 30-day rental. And we did actually rent 1 unit for a couple months to some folks that were coming in to work at the hospital. But the main resource that I've found to be most helpful at this moment is Zillow. And so this is Zillow Rental Manager. On the left is my property in Denver. That one we're still renting.
Can you share your screen again, Jake?
Oh, that would help. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. I can see it on my screen, so I don't know what you're all complaining about. But yeah, sorry. So usually we've been advertising on Airbnb, and that's worked well for us. Like I said, we did rent 1 property for a couple of months, but we switched over to Zillow Rental Manager. Seemed to be the easiest one to get up and running for long-term rentals. And the reason for that was they have everything basically integrated into this now. So you can screen tenants, you can create a state-specific lease, and they can pay securely through all through Zillow, and pretty easy to use. All of those services are free to landlords. Tenants pay $30 for a screening, and I believe that ACH is free, but they would pay a fee if they were going to pay by credit card. Creating the lease is free. So all of these things are things that I used to pay for when I had long-term rentals before, and now it's all free through Zillow. You do pay $4.99 per listing to post your property. It's $4.99 per week. What we found is that we only needed to post the properties for a week or two, so general cost was pretty low on that. On the left is our property that we have in Denver, and we've been renting that on a monthly basis. We've had I think 4 renters, each average about 3 months. They've all booked through Airbnb so far. The interesting thing this time is that I have so much demand coming in for a full year lease, is I think we're probably going to go that route, and they're willing to pay basically the same price that I was looking to charge for a 3-month lease. So there definitely still is demand for rental properties out there. If you have a property and you're unsure what to do, I think you can rent it long term if you're having trouble short term.
Thanks for running through that, Jake. I think that's helpful just to see the different platforms and how they can be utilized. So I know in sort of our introductions, you, Wesley, had touched on that you had a basement that you're looking at some possibly renting out and exploring whether that made sense for you. What part of town is your property in? Is it in the Denver proper, or is it in one of the suburbs?
I'm actually in Colorado Springs, somewhat near downtown in the Olympic Center.
Awesome. That'd be a great rental area, definitely.
One thing, I guess, a question for you, is it something that has its own entrance and is separated from your living space, or is it something that's a part of your living space?
It's separated with a backdoor entrance that's easily accessible from the street, so you don't have to. I mean, you have to go to the yard, but you don't really have to. It's not very hard to get to. The only thing that is shared down there would be the laundry room and utility room, but otherwise there's its own bathroom, living room, and bedroom.
Great.
Awesome.
Yeah, sounds like a really good setup for an Airbnb for sure.
Were there any specific concerns that you had about putting that up on Airbnb, or just kind of looking to see what if it was something that might work?
Well, I knew that there was the COVID-19 hold on short-term rentals, and I haven't been keeping too busy tracking on what the rules and regulations are. But hearing you guys, it sounds like that just reopened. So are people using like cleaning services after a rental person comes in and uses the space for disinfecting, or what are the rules on that now?
Yeah, there's a page that they put up on colorado.gov. So if you look at I'm trying to remember the new phrase that we're going by now, safer at home and the outdoors, or something like that, I think was the new phase we're in. There are some notes on what you're supposed to do. They're requesting that you leave a day gap between guests. Do full disinfectant, all that stuff, which I think most people were doing pretty good cleaning already. They've also asked people to take out clothes and other soft goods in the property that you can't easily clean between guests. So, obviously if you have a pillowcase on something, then that's easy to throw in the wash. But if it's a decorative pillow that you can't wash each time, then they're saying just take that out of the space for now. So it's not anything super crazy as far as I'm concerned. We use a professional cleaning service already, and I think anyone who has more than a couple rentals gets to that point, because cleaning them yourself becomes difficult if you have more than 1 or 2 rentals. But I would highly recommend reading through that list and making sure that you're comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you.
I just absolutely, you're welcome. And I just put a link in the chat section, the official executive order that was released. So that'll at least give you a starting point.
Yeah. Any other questions we can answer for folks? You know, anything specific that you're wondering about with the changes with COVID-19?
I guess, Jake, do you want to chat about, you know, maybe some of the opportunities that might, you know, that this is presenting in terms of, you know, I know that Lindy mentioned that she was looking to purchase a property, you know, for rental in the near future here. It's a challenging time, but it, you know, with that, new opportunities will come up. Anything on that front that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that you know, anyone who's been in business or in real estate or anything for a period of time, you realize that there's good times and there's bad times, and there's always opportunity. So you just have to be open to the opportunity that's available at that time. So, for example, you know, for me, I realized that short-term rentals was not going to be something I could do for a while. So I transitioned into, you know, furnished longer term rentals. And, you know, that's something that I'm interested in. And it's something that I was considering doing was, you know, hosting travel nurses and things like that, where they were looking for, you know, 3 to 6 month rentals. But you avoid a lot of the additional contact that you have with a short-term rental. The other thing that we've been looking at is what other financial aspects can we optimize during this time. So, for example, we're refinancing our primary residence because we can save a couple $100s a month right now by doing that. If you have an Airbnb on your property, that's something that you can definitely look at doing, is potentially refinancing your property. You know, maybe you put in some money to renovate and things like that. Now's a great time to pull some money out of your property. I have found that refinancing investment properties, especially multifamily, is difficult right now. Seems like lenders are wanting to charge quite a bit for their rates because they have so much business from primary houses right now. That being said, I'm seeing a lot of success, and we're pulling a home equity loan out of one of our investment properties up in Steamboat because those are still flowing, and we all know that the Fed cut the rates significantly. So money that usually is in the, you know, mid to high 5%, for me to pull out at this moment is now around 4%. So there's always opportunities. I think now is a great time if you're at home to take a look at your finances, take a look at your business if you're renting to other folks, and say, you know, do I need all of these things that I'm spending money on right now? You know, and if you're at home, maybe cutting the grass yourself as opposed to hiring someone to do that. Those sorts of things are definitely always options. For me, I noticed that I have a bunch of software subscriptions that I could either pare back or cut out because my short-term rental business is significantly less right now. So I could save a few $100s a month by cutting those out. So just be open to those opportunities that are out there for you.
Hey, Jake, got a question coming in from Andrew here. Andrew, thanks for joining us. If you'd like to, you're welcome to click the unmute button and chat, since this is more of a discussion platform than our usual webinars. But Andrew is asking about
Hello.
How does Airbnb prove? Andrew, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead and just ask your question so that everybody knows
Sure.
what you're asking.
So I've been running an Airbnb in South Boulder 15, 16 months now, and we got an Instagram from the city who just started a new platform or system for track taxes. And they're saying they want proof that occupancy taxes have not just been, that they're being paid by Airbnb. Airbnb says they don't give an exact date or address of when they're paid. They're paid once a year. So I'm going back and forth. The fact that the city is closed mostly, it's hard to get a hold of anyone. But we did submit some information that says, you know, these are the dates, these are the amounts collected, but I don't have an actual verifiable statement that says this amount was paid into what entities. I wonder if anyone else has come across that challenge and how they handled it.
Is this all through Airbnb, or are you renting through other platforms as well?
100% Airbnb.
Huh. That's very odd that you're having that difficulty. I'm going to share my screen, and maybe it's just something that you're unaware where to find it. So let me share a screen here.
Yeah, the gross revenue screen, right, where it shows the occupancy taxes that are being collected, but it doesn't state that they're paid, which is a little ambiguous to prove.
Okay. I guess that's true. It doesn't show that Airbnb is remitting them, but Airbnb, right. I mean, that would be on Airbnb. It seems like not on you. So yeah, I guess if you know that screen and you're familiar with that, then I don't have another way that I can think of how to prove what you collected and what should have been submitted. I certainly have not had any of those issues before, but there is this transaction history.
Right.
Yeah, that would be the best bet as far as it. I've heard of a lot of people getting into trouble with this when they use other platforms. I really haven't heard about it with Airbnb, because on other platforms you may have to submit your own taxes, and that's a little bit harder to calculate and submit. But yeah, I really haven't heard much about people having issues with the Airbnb. So I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm hoping that it's just a glitch, that they came out with this new software, and that once I tell them, hey, these are the amounts, they'll take my word for it, and we can move forward. But I'm dealing with a little bit of a nervous, I'm co-hosting or arbitraging it.
Okay.
So the homeowner is like kind of sketched out. That they got this letter.
And I would, my best advice for you is to just stay on it. I always like to consider myself like a bulldog when it comes to any sort of business issues that come up. I'm someone that'll call every single day.
All right.
Just leave a message every single day. Something like that. Send emails to anyone you can find emails for. Eventually, you get a reputation where Boulder will say, geez, this guy is calling every single day. We got to figure out what's going on so that we can solve it for this guy. And they'll just get tired of it, so they'll figure it out.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything
Anybody else with specific questions regarding your situation?
Well, if there aren't any additional questions, we wanted to give you guys kind of a heads up on where we are going in our business here and in our lives, and ask for some feedback from everybody. We've done these webinars for about a year now. We feel like we've covered the broad basics and some finer points of running an Airbnb. Again, you can see any of those videos on our website at mastervacationrentals.com. But we're looking for some feedback for what would you like to see us do now? Are there specific topics you want more information about? Are there different platforms or formats that you'd like to see us work in? Give us some feedback if you can.
Looks like Lars has his hand raised. Lars, if you just want to unmute yourself and hop on in, that's totally fine.
So I guess I was thinking that it would be harder for us to implement our plan of being in both places and, you know, having Airbnb in Colorado. But I'm wondering if actually this opens up some opportunities. It sounds like 30-day to 90-day leases, or at least rentals, would be pretty viable with the right property in the right location. Would that continue to be true, and maybe possibly even more true?
Personally, I think so. And I mean, I've certainly seen good demand for that in both Denver and Steamboat. And from what I hear from folks in Colorado Springs, there is good demand for that as well. I feel like it's kind of a niche market that people aren't considering as much. I know in Denver, I was really surprised when I put my property up that when I did a search for, a month or two, a couple months out, only one other property in the general area that I was in, which rental neighborhood. And so I think a lot of people just aren't considering it. They're either doing Airbnb or they're doing long-term. They're not thinking about furnishing a property and then renting it for months at a time. But I think there's great demand for that. And I've been able to be pretty picky with who I want to be at my property. So I think it's a great thing. There's a lot of additional resources out there. One that I've found is called Furnished Finders, and it specializes in mostly travel nurses. But if you have a property that has 1 or 2 bedrooms, I would say that's kind of a great situation for that.
Great, thanks.
B. West. Sorry, Lars, go ahead.
Well, I just had one quick additional question. Is there any kind of a decision matrix in terms of where to find, how to decide which areas, and for example, Colorado Springs, but anywhere, which areas are easiest to rent? Is it near universities? Is it near, cool areas that are kind of touristy? Is it near hospitals? Is it, like, how do you kind of work through that decision matrix?
I wouldn't say that there's a decision matrix that I know of, but I would say that all of those things that you're talking about are potentially great places to rent. I would say that universities at the moment are up in the air. If you had asked me 90 days ago, I would have said being near a university is a huge asset. And now I would say that may not be the case, because who knows if people are going to go back to universities in a traditional sense now. But I think being near hospitals is great if you're thinking that travel nurse type of a scenario. I think being located near downtown tends to be a very viable rental situation, because a lot of people, if they're in an area for a short period of time, whether it's 30 to 90 days, they want to explore that area. So if you're around the things that people want to do in that city, I think that's your best bet. Obviously, if you're in a vacation destination type of a place, then being near the amenities of that destination would probably be your best bet. So if you're near a ski area, if you're near a lake, something like that. Eric used to work for a vacation rental management company, and he spoke to hundreds of potential hosts. So he may have some more information on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to understand your market. And I'll post a link to a webinar we did on, sort of market and property evaluation and figuring out the best rental strategy for those properties. But I think, understanding when someone's coming to Colorado Springs, what are they looking to do? And, if you're way out in the woods, up in the foothills, that can be attractive for people who are looking to, get away and be in a peaceful outdoor setting. But just understand which properties you're competing against as well. And making sure that you're able to have a competitive offering, also price wise compared to what else is out there. So there's no 100% right or 100% wrong answers on the choosing which part of an area to buy in, but I think just understanding why people are traveling to that area and how do you compare to what's already out there.
All right, thanks. Really appreciate it. It's very helpful.
Yeah,
absolutely.
no
Lars, great question.
Yeah, and it looks like B. Wesley and also Lindy sounded like they're asking more kind of along the same lines of that. So as far as what statistics and metrics we use for looking at short-term rental properties, we've talked about this on previous webinars, but basically you can start with a service like AirDNA. I'm going to share my screen again. I keep forgetting that I'm not sharing my screen because I normally have the screen
You can
shared.
see what you're doing all the time.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, normally I would say a service such as airdna.com will give you some basic, oh, now my internet site can't be.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, go for it, Eric.
All right, we'll pull it up here. Okay, share screen. I've got a lot of screens up, so let's make sure I get the right one. Okay. All right. So let's use our favorite.
Yeah, I would go to the Rentalizer.
Yeah, okay. Let's see here. All right, so this.
I think you're on just the generic one, but anyways.
I'll pull it up to the.
There you go.
All right, so AirDNA allows you to plug in do a market overview, which gives you a general idea of what's going on in an area. Pulled up Steamboat Springs because that's where Jake's properties and the properties that we've helped manage are located. And if you click down here on the left-hand side under Invest, there's Rentalizer. Click on that, and then you can plug in a specific property address, which is super helpful to get an idea of what's going on in the area. The thing to keep in mind is that this does pull data from all vacation rental listings in the area. So whether that person rents for, just the Christmas holiday week, or it's a full-time rental like one of Jake's properties, that's all going to be factored in here.
So the data that you're seeing here is just a really broad overview. Everybody there? Uh-oh.
Did things go away? You're all good? Are you still seeing me, Jake? Jake? Uh-oh. All right, are people still able to hear me? I think Jake might have run into a little bit of trouble on his internet there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah,
go back
no
and share my
problem.
screen
I
then.
hear you.
Yeah.
All right. So with the Rentalizer, it really just, so the occupancy rate is quite a bit lower than you're most likely to see. And the average daily rate is going to be a little bit different as well. So this is most likely going to be a little bit lower because you're taking into account the fact that, people who only rent for the prime time parts of the year are bringing this average up, and they're also bringing this occupancy rate down. So this is a really good tool to start. Lars, to your question of, what's going to make a good property. Then once you have an idea here, you can hop on to Airbnb and look at the map at other properties in the area, and you're able to take a look at other properties' calendars, what their availability looks like, what their pricing looks like throughout the year. So that is another really good way to do a little research. So you can plug in, use Steamboat again. You can zoom in over here and see that properties right now are running quite a bit cheaper than they usually would. So it's important to click into a place and then also look at their calendar over some of the prime time weeks, such as Christmas, New Year's, and Memorial Day, MLK and President's Day if you're in the mountains. So, all right. And stop sharing here.
I've got a question while you're in there. This is Lindy.
Yeah. Hi, Lindy.
That is just for the short-term rental. Where can you go to get a good estimate on how much rentals are going for if we are going to pivot and go to the 30 to 90 days? Because those are by night. I'm more curious about what are the rates people are charging for fully furnished by the month under 90 days, 30 to 90.
Yeah, great question. So a couple ways to look at that. One is you can plug in a minimum night stay here of a month or more and see what places around you are charging, because that'll filter properties that, it'll only show you ones that are renting by the month. You can also take a look on Furnished Finder, as Jake mentioned, is another place where you can take a look and see what places are renting for. This is a little more niche of a platform, but this is one resource. And then also, and just to get an idea of sort of traditional long-term rental is kind of a barometer for where your bottom dollar would be if you had to rent it. Unfurnished Rentometer does a pretty decent job giving you plug in a property address. I'll just do mine. You can plug in the bed bath, and actually I've already reached my limit on here. But you can run either 5 or 10 searches for free on here, and it'll give you a map showing neighboring properties, and you can click on that with a little more information and see how your property compares. So those are a couple good resources to start figuring out what you might be looking at price-wise on a month-to-month.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, B. Leslie, for joining us. He just said he's signing off. Any other questions from people here, or I guess feedback as well on sort of what Jake was touching on for the future presentations, or what you'd like to see from us? Looks like we might have Jake back. He's thinking about it. Jake, you're muted.
Thank you. Yep. Sorry, everybody. I got kicked off for some reason, and I'm now using my cell phone because my computer doesn't want to connect to the internet. So sorry. Any other questions we can answer here? I'll let Eric drive the internet for me.
That's all good. We were just chatting on a couple resources for 30 to 90 day rental comps.
Nice.
Touched on using the calendar function, Airbnb, Furnish Finder, and then Rentometer as a sort of basement price for traditional long-term rental.
Perfect. Yeah, and a big thing with the 30 to 90 day rentals is make sure that you're including whatever costs that you have in, so if you're traditional long-term rental, you would get $1,200 a month, but you're going to pay utilities, you're going to have, furnishings and things like that. Make sure you're giving yourself enough leeway there to pay those bills. So, for example, at our house in Denver, I have someone that comes and cuts the lawn for me. And so I'm going to make sure that I budget in that extra $80 a month as part of the rent. Otherwise, it's easier for me to do a long-term rental, not provide any services and let them do their own utilities, etc. So just make sure you're factoring in those extra factors.
That's a great point. Anything else from anybody here? Also on the feedback side as well. All right. Well, I'm not seeing anything else come through right now. So really appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Jake and I both have a lot of things going on, obviously, in our personal lives at this moment. So we might be taking just a little bit of a pause on the webinar front here. So we're here to be a resource for you in the meantime. So if you do have questions regarding short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, feel free to reach out to us. The website is there as a resource as well. A lot of our previous webinars and videos that we've made will cover some of these topics a lot more detailed than obviously we touched on here tonight.
Yeah, thanks everybody. It was a pleasure to get to chat with you, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.
Hey, thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Appreciate it.